If you're familiar with El Salvador, you've probably heard of adopting Bitcoin. Today, I'm sitting down with two co organizers of Adopting Bitcoin to learn more about the organization and the changes that are happening in El Salvador. Welcome back to the My Latin Life podcast, your trusted guide to traveling and living in Latin America. My guests today are Kiki and Charlie, co organizers of Adopting Bitcoin, live from El Salvador. How you guys doing?
Fantastic.
Hey Vance, great to be on the podcast.
Indeed.
Yeah, absolutely. Great to catch up. So
Yes.
I know Charlie is Irish,
Correct.
Kiki is Canadian,
For better or worse.
and where in El Salvador are you guys based?
I am down by the beach in an area called San Blas, or Surf City, very close to El Zonte.
Mm-hmm.
I'm up on top of a volcano, about 1,200 meters above sea level, in a town called Berlin, in the middle of the country. It's a rural enough town city with about 25,000 people.
Yeah, and I guess for reference for the audience, we've also had Nikki and James El Salvador on the podcast, who are also based in Berlin, El Salvador. So if you guys want to hear more about Berlin, definitely check out the Nikki and James episode. Um, I guess let's kind of kick things off with what is adopting Bitcoin? Maybe how did it get started, and what role does this organization play today in overall adoption and sort of the direction of things in El Salvador and in the Bitcoin community in El Salvador? To whoever wants to take that one first.
So, Adopting Bitcoin is a conference focused obviously on Bitcoin adoption. Focused primarily just on Bitcoin and no other cryptocurrencies. That's a big aspect.
Mm-hmm.
And it's its fourth year running now in terms of conferences. So the last 2 years, there's been over 1,000 attendees, and we're expecting a similar number of attendees this year. And
How many?
that question,
How many attendees?
over 1,000, around
Over a
1,100.
thousand. Wow, nice.
So it was a packed question, but the role that adopting Bitcoin plays in El Salvador and with Bitcoin it's a really good question. It's the flagship premier Bitcoin conference of El Salvador once a year, November, and it's on the 15th and 16th. And the aim of the conference is to bring together builders who build on top of Bitcoin, who can share their insights of their own experience and their own view of how Bitcoin plays a role in their life, but also in society's life. So you have a broad range of talks that are going to be present at the conference for the 2 days, but it spans from economics to the technical side, to the educational side, to the mining aspect of Bitcoin.
Mm-hmm.
And the aim is to increase education on Bitcoin and how does Bitcoin serve as the money globally for all humans. And I mean, ultimately, that's the aim, to allow Bitcoin to be money for everyone. And it starts with conferences like these where people can come together and really dig deep into what it is, what does it mean, and form some pretty strong connections with others who want to come down to El Salvador and check it out, see what it's like to use Bitcoin as money.
Mm-hmm. And where exactly is the conference taking place this year?
It's in San Salvador, so about 20 minutes south of San Salvador in a place called Nuevo Cuscatlan. It's a place called Salamanca Eventos. It's a beautiful conference venue surrounded by rolling green hills, and it has a capacity of well over 4,000 people. But we are dividing up the conference into three main halls, and it's it has a wide range of different activities like a Bitcoin para niños, which is a place for kids, so families can come. Kids are free, obviously,
Nice. And
so they
there's
can
going to be
drop.
like a play place and stuff.
Kiki's the expert on the Bitcoin para niños, so she can delve into that as we go forward. But there's also going to be an expo hall, which has Bitcoin businesses that want to showcase their product at the conference. It has two pretty main stages, one main stage and one side stage, and then one small stage, two workshops, a massive Bitcoin art exhibition, and then it has an area which is called the privileged access area for those who want to purchase a privileged access ticket. They get in it.
VIPs.
Yeah, we don't like to call it VIPs, but it is pretty much a VIP. It's for people who want to
Uh-huh.
hang out with the speakers, get a free high quality buffet, cocktails, the whole shebang. Kiki's can delve into the foods and drinks for that, but it's a really good chance to rub shoulders with the people that they want to rub shoulders with, pretty much. Um, yeah, so and then we have a barrage of food vendors that will be there delivering high quality food and drinks. And yeah, it's 2 days of fun, high intensity, 9 a.m. to about 6 to 8 p.m. in the evening. And then there's a ton of side events that surround the conference on the both
Hmm.
days of the conference, but also on either side of the event, so before and after.
Sure. That's amazing. And I just wanted to clarify something. Is adopting Bitcoin just conferences, or like, the rest of the year, is there also, I don't know, meetups or some sort of community aspect of things?
That's a good question. Currently, there isn't any meetups outside of the actual conferences, but it's something to consider for the future. I think the one of the best things, what people love about these conferences, aside from the aspect of learning and education, is just getting to meet other Bitcoiners or other people who are interested, literally from all over the world. And I find, like for myself, those relationships tend to last pretty long. So, especially when you live in El Salvador, like every day can be a meetup if you really want it to
Right.
be. So the spirit carries on, I would say.
For sure. It's adopting Bitcoin. Kamal is the head organizer. He started this about 4 years ago. It's founded by Galoy. Galoy, just to give you a background of where it stems from, Galoy is the infrastructure company that built Blink Wallet. Blink Wallet is the Bitcoin wallet that is used probably most internationally uh,
Hmm.
in places where they use Bitcoin as money. And Kamal has been organizing this, but he's also took care of conferences in other countries such as South Africa and Holland in Arnhem. So it's an international conference, but El
Hmm.
Salvador is the flagship one. It's the one that initiated the whole adopting Bitcoin brand.
Okay. And so there's adopting Bitcoin conferences happening in other cities as well.
Correct. Yeah.
What
So
are, what
South
other cities?
well, two other cities. It was in Cape Town in South Africa. South Africa, there's a booming Bitcoin use as money. A lot of Bitcoiners in South Africa, they're pretty hardcore. And then in Arnhem, which is one of the oldest circular economies that started in 2014, and that's been held there. The ethos
Arnhem. What's
behind
what's Arnhem?
it's a small city in Holland,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't even know what Arnhem was before adopting Bitcoin. So but yeah, the ethos behind adopting Bitcoin is that it's high signal. And when we say high signal, that means that, you know, when you listen to people, you're getting a lot of high quality information and not noise or not stuff that you wouldn't be interested in. And you can see that replicated both in South Africa, Arnhem, and then in El Salvador.
Awesome. I'm sure, like, I know these conferences are a huge amount of work to prepare for. You guys have probably been working for 6+ months on this, right?
Yep. I was at the Canadian Bitcoin conference in May, and I took a lunch break from the conference to hop on a call so that we could just get through what we needed to get through for adopting, which is happening obviously in November.
It's pretty crazy to be spending months and months preparing for 2 days. Um, I imagine it's going to be an anticlimax. It's just pessimistic. No, for myself, not for everyone who goes there, obviously. Um, it's going to be a huge event, but like spending 10 months organizing 2 days is it's just a crazy concept in my view.
And do you know maybe where this event is ranked in terms of like global Bitcoin events? Because I know there's the one in Miami, which is probably the biggest in the world, I'm guessing. And then do you have an idea of like, uh, you know what I mean?
How it ranks? I
Yeah,
would say I would say it depends on your criteria, right? Like, are you ranking it based
attendees.
on attendees? Yeah,
Yeah.
then there's certainly bigger ones. I mean, BTC Prague was gigantic. Miami was in Nashville this year. Next year, they're going to Las Vegas. I can only imagine what they have planned. So, 1,000 people, around 1,000 people, is that the biggest conference in terms of people in the world? No. But when you think about the clientele that are coming, most people are coming from all over the world. Yes, we definitely have Salvadorans, and we hope to get more and more each year.
Mhm.
But we have people coming from Indonesia to El Salvador, right? It's easy to go to a Bitcoin conference in the US. It's easy to go to a Bitcoin conference in Europe. But to come to El Salvador is a bit of a journey for a lot of people. So yeah, it's not the highest in attendance, but number one in my heart.
Absolutely. I believe, in terms of its impact on Bitcoin itself, I believe adopting Bitcoin is huge because of the quality of the individuals that tend to speak at this and the work that they're doing. They're working on tools that are used globally that are like very powerful tools. People who are at the forefront of the educational side of Bitcoin, on the
Mhm.
philosophical side. So, in terms of the impact, in my view, it's huge. And sort of the story. I mean, we're run by stories, aren't we, as humans? The story behind adopting Bitcoin, and uh, it's in the only country that has Bitcoin as legal tender in the whole world. This
Mhm.
is the hub by which people can come to and be free of the tyranny of having to use a centrally issued currency by a government, and the hope that it inspires into each Bitcoiner that comes here, that it's actually possible to live in a world where we use a money that cannot be debased. That I think ultimately, in a world full of darkness, this is like a beacon of light in a way. So it ranks pretty
Definitely.
high in my view.
For sure. For sure. Who are some of the attendees this year?
We have, of course, Max and Stacy. It wouldn't be a Bitcoin conference in El Salvador without Max Kaiser and Stacy Herbert. But aside from that, there's some recurring folk. There's some new folk. I know one that Charlie's really excited about is Rahim. I'm not gonna.
Tagi's, I've tried to pronounce his second name, and I apologize, Raheem, if you listen to this, but I think it's Tagi's Zadegan. He's,
He's
yeah,
an Austrian economist, probably the first of the like classically trained Austrian economy class that got into Bitcoin. So if you are coming at things from that view, that's a really exciting person to have. We've got people from Ocean, if you're more interested in the mining side of things, a huge presence from Me Premier Bitcoin from the educational side of things. Tons of circular economies. Of course, we have Chimbera and Mike Peterson from Bitcoin Beach, but we also have people coming
Mike
like Herman
Peterson,
from Cape
in
Town.
case
We have Bitcoin Bali.
Kiki's gone
The
offline there,
list
but
goes on. I
uh,
think we have over 150 speakers or workshop presenters at this point. So there's a lot, and there's definitely something for everyone. I mean, the first conference that I went to, which was in 2022, I was like really unsure how it would go because I'm relatively young, I'm a female, I'm not super technical. I wasn't sure if I would kind of find my place, but
Mhm.
um, I did. I was able to meet people. I've seen the variety of talks and of workshops grow. I've seen the demographic of the people who are coming grow. So even if Bitcoin, like, you're not down the rabbit hole yet, or if it's not your number one, end all be all, that's okay, because there's so much like commentary on society, philosophical viewpoints. There really is kind of something for everyone, and I think that's another thing that makes it adopting Bitcoin unique from some of the other conferences. Is, yes, we are Bitcoin only, and it's really it's no noise at all. It's high signal. But in part of that is, like, in order to adopt Bitcoin, we need to cross the chasm, right? We need to get from point A, where there's, mostly just the technical kind of stuff, to point B, where it's actually being used on a day-to-day basis. And those implications are huge. So if you're curious about the world or freedom, then that's why this makes sense. That's why this resonates with people.
Love
Yeah,
it.
nice one.
And Kiki, could you tell me about the Access Tribe, the Bitcoin women's community?
Yeah, I was just speaking to Krista. I was just on her podcast a few days ago. She's doing some incredible work in kind of bringing Bitcoin, or women into Bitcoin, or female voices, giving them a stage. There's a lot of debate on, especially on Bitcoin Twitter, as I'm sure we all know, like, we need more women in Bitcoin. Um, I guess I have a slightly different opinion. I just think we need more people in Bitcoin in general, and as that happens, women will come. But I do think that it's important to have a space where, especially for people who are kind of new to the community, to be able to, like, see things on their level instead of on someone else's level. So for that, I really admire what Krista's doing, and that brings me, one of our satellite events is actually going to be a women's brunch meetup. And the cool thing
Nice.
about this one is it's going to be mostly in Spanish. So it's encouraging the local Salvadoran female population to show up and get curious and have a safe space, if you will, to just ask
Uh-huh.
questions.
And I assume they get like discounted tickets, the Salvadorans.
Yeah, their tickets are $21 across the board, which is pretty good, I'd say, significantly cheaper than anyone coming in from out of the country.
And how much is it for me and Charlie?
For foreigners who aren't living here, because we do have a discounted ticket for Salvadoran
Residents.
residents, yeah, which
Uh-huh.
is 121, if I'm not mistaken. And then for foreigners, it started out at $200 a couple months back, and is slowly increasing. So I believe the price at the door will be 500.
Hmm.
And it's been kind of like a hundred or $50 increase month over month as we get closer.
Yeah. For reference for the audience, we're recording this on October 28th. I'm going to switch up the podcast release schedule, squeak it in like right before the conference. Uh, but probably too late unless someone wants to like literally like fly same day to El Salvador. But
We've seen
um,
crazier things happen.
okay,
We have a
sounds
lot of
good.
people who show up day of, and they're like, I'm here, I'm ready to go. So come on by.
And by the way, I see that Kiki Bitcoin Baby follows me on Twitter, but adopting BTC does not. I'm not. Who's behind that account? You gotta tell them to follow me.
Kiki.
Me.
Okay, no pressure. No pressure. It's in the recording.
Oh no.
Evidence is out there. Kiki saying yes, I will follow you back.
Yeah, I'm on it.
Okay, no
Yes,
worries.
I'm sure a lot of your listeners, fans, are curious as to Latin America in general. I mean, Latin
Yeah, of
life.
course. Hmm.
El Salvador has a different sort of taste to it. So, like, if you're into Bitcoin a little bit, if you're interested on how you could come over to El Salvador and get to know other expats who want to come and live here to El Salvador, this is a really good networking opportunity. This is a good place to get to know people who live here already and who are thinking about coming to live over here. So any bit of curiosity, any bit of want to escape the matrix, as people say, or the
Hmm.
the Western life, which I'm sure a lot of people listening do want to see what that's like. El Salvador is an up and coming place. It's very unique. I mean, it's got some strong leadership. It's a very small country. It's tight, and the trajectory is decent. Yeah, the trajectory is quite good. So recommend anybody who hears this last minute, don't hesitate. Book your flight. Come over.
Come on down. Have you guys met Murph's Life yet?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. He came by for there was the Bitcoin legal tender celebration. Every year there's a celebration for the date that Bitcoin became legal tender. So he came down to participate in that. And the next day we had a Bitcoin farmers market in El Zonte. So he came by. That was the first time that we got to meet him. And I've been chatting with him a bit. We're hoping to get up to the farm.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, with the conference coming up, things are a little bit hectic, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm super bullish on what they're doing, and definitely has long term impacts, and it is affecting the community in such a positive way. But it's also, I think, going to set a standard that I think is really exciting for El Salvador and for expats who are coming in, because it's not just about I'm looking for the best option for me and nothing else. It's I'm looking to be a part of a community. Like
Mm-hmm.
that's what you're gonna find.
Definitely. Charlie?
No, just to reverberate what Kiki is saying, it's a country where people come to do stuff here in El Salvador. So if you're interested in building a life and doing some good work, it's a country that has been stripped from a lot of capital over the last few decades, stripped from a lot of culture. So it's kind of a blank slate in a way, and whoever comes in and decides to do some things gets to set the tone of the next decade or the next few decades. So if you have that initiative, I highly recommend checking the country out. There's a community for all aspects and some like-minded individuals. From my perspective, like-minded to me.
Mm-hmm. I feel like it's definitely for the extroverts a little bit, right? Like no one comes to El Salvador and just like grinds in their room, right? Like I feel like people are like getting out there and
You'd be
meeting
surprised.
everybody.
You'd be surprised. I think that there's the perfect amount of like meetups and activities and things to do. But it's up to you to participate in those things. So I know a few people. I know some people who are very crucial to uh, Bitcoin development who stay under the radar, and they just do their own thing.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the interesting thing about this place as well is it's really like choose your own adventure in the sense that if you want to come here and live a city life and go out to restaurants every night and have your condo, you can do that. If you want to live on a farm in the middle of nowhere, in the mountains, you can do that. If you want to live somewhere in between, you can do that. You really get to um, pick what it is that you want out of life, and you have the time and space to do that. And the community of expats is growing quite rapidly, but it is still
Mm-hmm.
quite small. So you kind of everyone, it takes a little bit if you're coming to settle, but you find your way, you find your people, you find the weather that works for you, the lifestyle, and it doesn't matter if your budget is really small or really big. Like you can still make it work. And same thing for your work. When I first came here, I was working online. I was feeling a little bit jealous because a lot of the people around me were not really working and were enjoying the beach and the sun. But that gave me a better work life balance at the time because I had like the drive to go outside, to go to the beach, to go volunteer and do all these things. Whereas
Mm-hmm.
in my previous life, I didn't have that. It was all kind of like work. I wasn't really like inspired. I wasn't
Mm-hmm.
really inspired by the things that were around me. Um, and yeah, you choose your own adventure, really.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I feel like when I'm in a what I call like a high opportunity cost environment because there's so much fun stuff to do outside, I'm way more productive with my work because I'm like, I need to get this done so I can go see the sunset. You know what I mean? Whereas
Totally.
if you were back in Canada and it's dark at 4 p.m., you're like, there's no incentive for me to get this work done fast because what am I going to do? I'm just going to go watch Netflix or something like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? There's the kind of nothing to do. So I feel like when you're somewhere where like things are going on and all that, yeah, like obviously you have to have discipline to, be on top of things. But if you can be disciplined, I find that I'm actually even more productive when I live somewhere, fun and cool.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Spot on there. That's kind of blown my mind, Vance. The opportunity cost is a good one.
Mhm.
Yeah, um, the things that you do when it comes to work needs to be much more valuable if you want to do it. So yeah, I mean, there's still a lot of building to do. I'm in Berlin, so I feel like the opportunity cost isn't as high as I'd say it would be in San Salvador.
Hmm.
But it depends on, yeah, as Kiki said, pick and choose what your adventure is, what's your mission, and the yeah mission Bitcoin here.
Charlie, random question. So when you're in Berlin, you probably do have to go to San Salvador or to Bitcoin Beach pretty often, right? What do? You got like a couple of taxi drivers on speed dial and you say like how much is it going to be, and I don't know what they charge you, $30 or something, or how do you do that? How do you get around?
Yeah, a lot of people do get taxis. There's a lot of options if you want to have a driver who can just drive you around, or Uber is quite cheap as well. Personally, I've got a car. I've
Mm,
got the motorbike for the town and then the car to get out.
mm,
So, but traffic in San Salvador can be a bit of a headache, so you need to be tactical about the timing and stuff like that. There's been a flood of people and of cars into the country, so they're building out a huge amount of infrastructure across the coast, across the city, surrounding the city. So we're at the stage where it's kind of that bottleneck clogging up. Um,
makes
until it,
sense.
it gets released once all the infrastructure is built out. So we're at that stage at the moment. It's super exciting, Vance. It's really, really exciting because you don't know what the hell is going to happen tomorrow. You don't know who's going to arrive into the country. You don't know who you're going to meet. You don't know what's going to happen around the world. I mean, and then the consequences of that with for people wanting to come to places like Latin America or El Salvador. So every day is a new day with something special happening, right? It
For
really
sure.
is.
Yeah, I live
But
in a similar kind of place in Mexico at the moment where it's bigger. It's not 25,000 people, but I live in a coffee region. And so I imagine it's like very similar to Berlin. Um, it's one of my favorite type. I think people are sleeping on it, like kind of the like high elevation Latin America, where they think you got to be on the beach or you got to be in the capital. But they don't realize that like these high elevation places, like really moderate weather, the best produce because like anything grows, right? Like the pineapples, the mangoes, the coffee, all that stuff. And you don't need AC or anything, right? So it's like perfect year round.
dead on there. It's God, the coffee, and yeah, the amount that you can produce, how productive you can be around here. I'm personally a mountain man myself. Uh,
Uh-huh.
I I don't know what reference that gives off, but yeah, I like the mountains, and I feel like you're kind of protected in a way. You've got an elevation, so you can protect yourself in a better way. I know these are all silly things, but this is how I feel. Like there's only three roads coming into the town. You could block them off pretty easily if needs be,
Uh-huh.
and yeah, and the cool climate obviously is huge. You need to expend a lot of energy to cool yourself down when you're by the beach, and stuff like that. So yeah, Kiki.
To go off of that, like the cultures, the microcultures from the city to the beach to the mountains are quite different here. If you are in a
Hmm.
stage where you're learning Spanish and you're not fully fluent, but you're pretty good, that's when you really start to notice like some of the dialect changes, like the way
Mm,
that the language is used and spoken changes a lot. Um, and it's interesting that we bring this up and that you mentioned Murph's Life, because exactly where Murph's Life is, in an area called Los Naranjos, which is in the west part of the country. It's not actually too far from Guatemala. It is like a fantastic elevation. I think for me, coming from Canada, I've always had like I really want to be at the beach. I really want to try it out. Like, I want to
yeah.
live this life, right? So that was kind of the draw. But also, when I first got here 2.5 years ago, the community was, or at least the Bitcoin community was way, way, way smaller. And it was, a lot of people were concentrated in this area. And this has kind of become the landing spot, if you will. Berlin has done a fantastic job in building a community, and maybe that's shifting a little bit because of what's going on in Berlin. But most people will come here kind of first to check it out and then go from there. But I think with what they're building with Murph's Life, like they are also building some housing, not only for locals for lifting them out of poverty, but for expats to create a community. And I think as more infrastructure gets built around these areas that were maybe previously forgotten, as more capital flows in, and especially as more people are like, I can't do the heat at the beach anymore. What else can we do? But I also don't want to be in the middle of San Salvador. Those communities will continue to grow and thrive. And like you said, there's huge benefits that I just don't think we're the social opportunity or like the desire to be, for me at least, to like be around like-minded people was stronger than
For sure.
the climate, I guess, opportunity. But now that it's
being in the mountains by yourself would be kind of weird, right? It's like you kind of need the
like
community.
my grandparents do that in really far north Canada, and I love that. And I'm probably going to end up doing that with my family at some point. But like in the meantime, I'm young and I came here to find like-minded people. So now that I have them, I want to keep them close.
Yeah.
But I see myself making that transition at some point in a few years when I'm personally ready. And it's awesome that there is now the communities that are being built, the opportunity to do that in the future.
The Pacific Coast sunsets, unbeatable.
It's sunset season right now.
Sunset season? There's a season that is better than others?
Absolutely.
Really?
Yeah. It's just because what people forget about El Salvador is the coastline is actually facing mostly east to west instead of north to south.
It's like on an angle.
Yeah. So what happens is, especially in the surf city, like kind of El Zonte to just west of La Libertad or east of La Libertad, pardon me, the way that it's geographically positioned, at some parts of the year, the sun will set over the mountains a little bit off of the horizon over the ocean, but
you want it over the water.
And that's what's happening right now. Yeah. And it's
awesome.
Unbeatable.
For reference, do you know what the month range is where it's over the water?
I would say it probably starts beginning of October until maybe February, March. Like it's kind of in conjunction with rainy season and dry season.
Okay, that makes sense. So dry season, October to February, also sunset season. So that's good. Okay, I like it. With our remaining time, let's talk a little bit more about the conference and adopting Bitcoin and stuff. What are some of the exhibits you're most excited about, or booths, or there's always like tons of like gags and stuff, right? Like tell me more about some of the things we can expect.
Well, one of the things Charlie mentioned is the Bitcoin para Niños area. I think I don't want people to like pigeonhole that into like this is a daycare, because it's not at all. There is definitely going to be like leisure time and coloring, but there's also like workshops. It's going to be in English and Spanish, games. Like the person that we're working with, Aza, who's amazing, is putting so much energy into this as well. And I think that that's like, I hope to see this at more conferences in the future so that families can bring, the kids, the other parent, grandma, grandpa, whoever wants to be involved. So that's something that's exciting and unique. We are definitely going to have a big food area. What we're trying to do is have everything, all payments on site be run on Bitcoin as well, which is a bit of a feat. And it's kind of like working through the adoption of Bitcoin in and of itself. And then the games aspect, like Charlie is putting together a fantastic poker tournament. I love poker, but like I can't play with these guys, but I think it's going to be a wicked vibe. We've got Chain Duel, which is like a video game that has Bitcoin incorporated, and people usually get pretty excited about that. What am I missing, Charlie?
No, there are helicopters. There's going to be planned to have activities like table tennis as well. But in terms of the speaking, I mean, there's a lot packed in. I'm really excited to actually hear Nikki and James present what they have. They have their experience from bolstering out the economy here. I think there's a lot packed into that. There's a lot packed into how you onboard vendors. There's people who are educating here in El Salvador who've had some really good Bitcoin training through this initiative called Kubo Plus, which is done by Stacey Herbert. She started this Kubo Plus program, and the graduates coming out of that are really really well trained on Lightning, which is the network that Bitcoin is on top of. I'm really interested on hearing what they have to say on educating the schools and what is actually impactful or not, what actually resonates with the students, what resonates with individuals, what are the obstacles in getting Bitcoin education out of there, like what stops people from wanting to use Bitcoin, because I think these are the cornerstones for everyone around the world in order for them to impact their local community and get
Mm.
them to adopt Bitcoin. So I think individuals who've actually gone out and done the work and want to go on stage and explain this, I'm really excited to see what their findings are. There's a I'm uh, I like to look into things and think philosophically, and there's some really good philosophical talks. Monica Bravo has a talk on Bitcoin and how it's literally there there's a lot of similarities between Bitcoin and the spiritual aspect of things, and being able to empathize with other religions, being able to empathize with other races is something that uh, we will start to see less of as over the next few years as things get more difficult and division increases, inequality increases. And I think Bitcoin serves as this sort of equalizer between individuals for us to be able to understand each other's values at a deeper level. So I'm really interested in hearing talks that delve into that and for people to become more aware of how impactful this is in terms of society, in terms of the next few decades. Um, the workshops, there's going to be a lot of workshops. There's going to be a lot of practical talks. Like there's someone who's talking about building a hostel down in El Salvador using Bitcoin. There is obviously the privileged access area. I'm really interested in seeing what that's going to look like because all the speakers come together. There's a lot of people who are interested in investing in El Salvador as well in different businesses. So from organizing a conference here in Berlin, Economia Bitcoin, after that, I found that there was a lot of different connections that were made where people found jobs, people were able to find new companies to invest in, people found
Mhm.
different places they wanted to live in, stuff like that. I believe that the connections made between individuals will will release something special, and I want to see what comes out of that. Like what new investments will come out of adopting Bitcoin, if any come, which I believe will. So yeah, those aspects. What else? There's a different workshops. There's the open source stage, and then obviously the side events. I mean, there's going to be multiple parties. Like I, love to have a really good party as well, and
Oh, that's a
I,
must.
yeah, like so so there's going to be two really different parties, but targeting different types of markets. So I'm interested. One is going to be in this kind of 80s sort of mansion style place called Palestra House, if I'm right, Kiki. I don't know if I should be announcing this, but
Is that
yeah,
on the coast?
No, it's in Escalon in the super high part of San Salvador.
Okay,
This
cool.
place overlooks the entire city. It is amazing. It's kind of like a Colombian
Yeah, yeah.
den from the 70s, but restored and just beautiful. Um,
Sick.
yeah, red lights, all everything you want.
Oh,
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
cool.
Yeah, and then the other after party is the next day, the Saturday, and that's going to be taking over the top four floors of one of the main buildings in the historic center, overlooking the National Theatre with the rooftop bar, and that's going to have like the history of money theme across it. It's going to have different types of themes, music, rock. You have your electronic music towards the end of the night. So the after parties sound really good, and I believe they're going to turn out to be class. The next day, then people are going to go down to the beach to Zante, and there's talks of having parties at the Bitcoin Mansion. So the side activities, that's kind of what I'm really excited to see form. There's a film festival on the day before adopting Bitcoin, which shows this movie talking about Bitcoin mining called Dirty Coin, and that is looking to be really cool. There's a speakers dinner afterwards. So yeah, I'm pretty much excited for everything. Like when being an organizer, uh, you get to see what goes on in the background, and even though it can be a pain in the hole a lot of the times, you feel like you are creating something that people will appreciate. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing people enjoy themselves and come out of it feeling inspired.
Mic drop.
Yeah. So yeah, a lot of exciting things ahead.
Epic, epic. And where can people go to buy a last minute ticket or just to learn more about adopting uh, Bitcoin in general and maybe get on the radar for next year?
I would say the two best places to find us would be on the website, which is sv24 adoptingbitcoin.org. That's for this year. And probably Twitter is the most up to date, most exciting platform that we're using, and that's
Mm-hmm.
at adoptingbtc. And we just followed you back.
Yeah, I saw that. And there's a mailing list, I'm guessing, on the website. People can sign up and get updates and all that.
For newsletters, absolutely. Yeah.
Amazing.
If you want to
Anything else?
volunteer,
Yep.
if you want to volunteer, you can reach out as well. It's a good opportunity to get a cheap enough um, view of adopting Bitcoin, 2 4 hour shifts, and you get to see the conference. So if you're interested.
Yep. Very good strategy. Anything else you guys want to add?
Can't wait to see everyone there.
Vance, thank you. Thank you very much for having us on the podcast. It'd be good to see you in person at some stage. And hope all of the listeners get to come to El Salvador and check out this global revolution that's happening.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining us, guys. I definitely appreciate it and appreciate all your hard work. So I'll leave a link in the description where people can check out your Twitter and the website. And I wish you guys an amazing conference.
Thank you. Much appreciated.
All the best.
Absolutely. This has been another episode of the My Latin Life podcast. Again, my guests today, Kiki and Charlie, co-organizers of Adopting Bitcoin. And quick message for the audience, wherever you're listening to this, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, please be sure to subscribe. We put out 2 episodes a week with amazing guests like Kiki and Charlie, and you won't want to miss an episode. Ciao for now. Hey guys, quick note at the end of the episode here. If you made it this far, you might be interested in working with My Latin Life personally to make progress on your internationalization plan. So whether the next step for you is getting residency in Latin America, lowering your taxes, choosing the best country, maybe a little birth tourism, whatever the next step is for you, of course, My Latin Life can help. We've helped people in their 20s, their 40s, their 60s, because I truly believe that Latin America has something to offer people at every stage of life. So if you want to become our VIP client, if you want to work with Vance, myself directly, book a call. There will be a link in the description. There will be a small fee for the initial consultation, and we do that to filter out the time wasters and focus on the best of the best clients. But if you're listening to this podcast and you made it all the way through the episode, I know you're the best of the best. But we're ready to work with you. So book that call. Hope you enjoyed this episode of the My Latin Life podcast, and we'll catch you in the next one.